Hey, Chris Liepe here, and by popular request, I have the channel's very first reaction video. I don't know if I'm going to do many of these. We'll see how you guys like them. But I'm going to start with a reaction to Soundgarden's Beyond the Wheel. This is a song that was back on their early sub-pop release, Ultra Mega OK. It was originally recorded then, and they've since done it live quite a bit. And I'm going to be reacting to two different versions of this song. The first one is live back in the early 90s in Germany, and the second is live in 2012 when Soundgarden got back together. And I want to do this because young Chris Cornell and old Chris Cornell give different things away about how he gets his sound. I've mentioned this on the channel many times before, that in order for us to fully develop our own voices, it's a really great idea for us to listen to some of our favorite singers live. See if we can learn by watching them, see if we can learn by listening to them, because we're so used to hearing the studio recordings that are, for all intents and purposes, they're perfect. I mean, they've gone over that over and over again. The effects are just right. They've gotten the perfect take. It's not the case live. So we can learn a lot in terms of how they really exist. And that helps us springboard off of that and develop our own sounds while borrowing from some of the things that they do. And one of the reasons I chose Beyond the Wheel is that this is one of Cornell's most soaring and high melodies of his entire career. And when you listen to it live, it does a really good job of reinforcing some of the things that I've talked about on this channel. You'll hear the dying cat sound that I have demonstrated in other videos and will do in this video. You'll hear how he isn't quite as dirty or gritty live. He's cleaner. You'll hear all that stuff. And with some of Soundgarden's other songs that are in a slightly lower register, you can still hear what he's doing, but there's lots of takeaways that you can get from going through and watching this particular song. So without further delay, here is Beyond the Wheel. We'll start with young Chris Cornell. Let's get going. There is a turning storm. You can hear, you can feel the aggression about to come out when he's singing, even though he's in his lower register. But you can feel him pushing already. My stomach tenses up even at this stage. Even that note. It's not, it's placed right there. And then he's got his mouth like this to curtail some of that brightness. That's not tension. That's tone shaping. As opposed to, you can hear the roots of that dying cat sound already. Now, man, what an awesome ma! So that's in head voice when I'm hitting that. Ma! With the same sort of mouth that he was using in the same pitch. But he is belting it. And I've linked the How to Sing Like Chris Cornell video below, and it'll show up in a card too here on the channel. But this idea of pushing and creating this sound It's louder than a particular that note. It's louder and more supported. That's the same note that he's using. And by shaping his mouth a certain way, he's able to get that same sort of mixed voice sound. Now, if you listen to the way he did Mother Who, he goes into a much cleaner version of the word who. Mother Who's your man? There's breakup on all the notes except for who. And when he says doing, you'll notice that as well here in a minute. He is clean, not gritty. To make a proper home. And just so this goes with, it kind of goes without saying, but I make no claims to be able to do what he's doing as well as he's doing. Only insights that have helped me insert some of this inspiration into my own voice. This is incredible stuff. And I'm by no means trying to minimize or diminish the awesomeness of this performance. On two there, two. He was really big on show them how to. You can hear those different levels of grit. He's fairly clean there. You still hear that gritty overtone on most of the notes. And that's what makes it so incredibly cool. But there's strategy there. There's the clean steel again. So if we try that, steer your life around. You're adding, here, let me break down that sound for you a little bit. Again, steer. Then we're going to get that dying cat sound. Again, go check out that video. Push even harder so that you can get a little bit of that breakup, and we're utilizing vocal fry, which I've also talked about in other videos. But we've got and then we have something that resembles what he's doing. But he's got, when he does that E vowel, he doesn't quite have the same grit, and he's okay with that because the overall arching sound has that grit. And that's one thing to remember when we're singing. Not every note needs to be the same amount of grit or intensity. Because if the overall intensity of the performance works, that's what everybody else does too. Moving on. Ridiculously high note. All right, so that's the high passage from that song. Let's go to old Chris Cornell and make some observations about how things changed for him as he got older. It's really fascinating because he can still hit all the notes and really well. And I was watching a video with him one time, and I teach this to my students as well. I was watching an interview of Chris Cornell, and he said that, the voice is a moving target. As you age, you have to learn how to approach things differently. Things feel differently as you get older. They sound differently. And you always need to be in tune with your body, understand the dynamic nature of your voice, and adjust so that you can continue to sing well and be okay with the fact that it's going to be different. And that brings up a really, really good point. The best thing you can do for your voice when you're learning to sing and when you're learning to improve your voice is to be highly introspective. Always be thinking about how things feel in relationship to how they sound. More on that in my free vocal course listed below, and more on the channel. I talk a lot about this on the channel as well. Here we go. Older Chris Cornell. He's far more relaxed, closed mouth with his lower stuff. Still sounds great. Up to the next level. Baby, cry. So here, whereas when he was younger, he was already doing he had a brighter, tiny, tiny. He was doing a little bit of that. Here, it's far more closed, far more relaxed. And it's creating this a more eerie, more subdued sound that in some ways prepares you for the high stuff in a way that the older version didn't. It's cool. I love how he maintains the art and the intensity in different ways. Now that was almost entirely clean. There's effects on it. It's still intense, like it was in the younger version of him. But if you it's those notes, well supported mixed voice, but there's no grit. And he'll introduce some grit, but it sounds different and a little bit more separated from the way it was when he was younger. An example of that for my own voice would be like this. Here's younger Chris Cornell. There's a little bit of that distortion. When you hear him go into distortion when he's older, that ability to add that little bit of breakup, that smoother sounding distortion, isn't as prominent, if at all, in the older Chris Cornell. So it's no longer this. It's no longer that. It's more like this. There's more breakup. There's more of that teetering on almost a pitchless scream. And you'll hear some of that here, although he keeps it pretty clean. But that's a big difference when you listen to younger Chris Cornell versus older Chris Cornell. As your vocal cords age, you lose the ability somewhat to add the more subtle distortion. But he deals with it impeccably well. there, he does have a bit of neck in it almost, it sounds like. Feel! But it's a bit grittier there. It's a little bit lower than how to feel! Definitely has that going on, where there's this cleaner, higher note, and then he's grounding with a little bit more grit in the lower note. Awesome thing to do. Again, it gives you that overarching feel of intensity, but you're able to hit that other note and then capture the listener's ears with that grit, even though the grit isn't happening the whole time. Delay is cool. Delay effect. That wasn't as prominent. I love this lower stuff here. So cool. Now there on that improv to the ground, that's a much lower note. And he's going to add a much chestier approach to that one. To the ground! You can add more chest to that mix. And I've done videos on the mixed voice as well, so be sure to check those out on the channel too. One of the things I love about watching Chris Cornell live is this, you get this sense of like, well, can he actually do it? There's this anticipation because what he sings is so challenging and melodic and cool at the same time. So there's that aspect of it. But then I love the improvisational sorts of things that he does, you know, from the subtle humming to the playing with the timing. What I'm so used to on the recording, sometimes he'll do something different with the timing, but still keep the notes the same. And he was doing that there towards the end of that little passage. If you listen to Slaves and Bulldozers live, he'll do similar things where the melody, the notes are the same, but he's really messing with the rhythm in a cool, creative way. Again, so relaxed, such a contrast. It's worth noting that he doesn't look very tense when he's singing high, because he's using that mixed voice strategy to get those notes. He's pushing pretty hard, but not as hard as you think. He's pushing really hard there. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first attempt at a reaction video. I certainly had a lot of fun. I love digging into my favorite singers and pulling things out of their voices and not trying to necessarily imitate them with my voice, although I think that's part of it. but it's more being inspired, watching their mouth, watching their posture, listening to how they approach things live. All these things help me learn how to incorporate things that I want to hear in my own voice into my singing. If you want to take your singing further, be sure to join my free vocal course listed below. And there's lots on this channel devoted specifically to singing powerfully, mixed voice, screaming, adding distortion and grit, all these things that Chris Cornell does so well. So be sure to subscribe to the channel and check out some of the other videos too. We'll see you for more.